So the next scale we're going to talk about is called the blues scale. Now this is a totally unique animal in the world of music. Let me show you what it is first of all. In the key of C, think of it like a major scale, but it does have a minor third. So it's got minor third, lowered fifth, lowered seventh. So like this. Now you can tell right away from the sound of that, that is a familiar sound. So if you're familiar with blues music, you know. But the thing about the blues is you find this scale in every style of music, rock and pop and jazz and gospel. Originally, the blues, just like a little mini history lesson here, the blues comes from, you know, early in the 1900s, 1800s, in the South of America. A lot of these are like black slave tunes. They call them work hollers or spirituals. And a lot of these songs came out of the terrible, terrible conditions that these people found themselves in. So these songs tend to feature notes that are, it's hard to show you actually on a keyboard because a lot of these notes are in the cracks, as they say. They're in between. So when you think of a blues third, we think of it as a lowered third. But the truth of the matter is, it's easier to show on a guitar because that third is like a bent note. And I like to think of it like, you know, these are people who are enslaved. You know, these songs are all about like trying to overcome oppression. And it's kind of like what that note is. You know, that minor third is trying to get up to the major third of the key, and as much as you bend that note, it just never quite gets up there. That's kind of like the essence of the blues. So when you play these, now, you know, you can do it this way. I mean, that's what you would essentially be doing if you were bending that note on a guitar or bending that note on a saxophone, or even as a vocalist, bending that note. But it's kind of the essence of what the blues is. So to describe it in theoretical terms, we're almost off the chart here a little bit, because it's the style of the way you bend those notes that makes the blues the blues. But look at the inherent thing here. You've got like the third that is lowered. I'm not going to say a minor third, because the truth of the matter is, a lot of times the blues is based on major triads, but the melody note is that bent lowered third. You see what I'm saying? The chord's major. And the same way with the fifth is lowered. And the seventh is lowered. So you basically get three lowered elements. The third, the fifth, and the seventh are all lowered. So when you hear melodies that are like a, that's based on the blues scale. Think about this song, sort of. Now there's an example, you know, Smoke on the Water, a rock song that's totally based on the blues scale. There's the minor third, here's that flat five, and like you can think of a million other examples. The reason the blues scale is so important is that, especially when you're soloing, a lot of times even over like sweet, you know, gospel or jazz changes, you'll still hear these melody notes borrowed from the blues scale. And a lot of times if you hear a solo that strictly stays in the major scale and doesn't use some of these blue notes, it can almost sound bland by comparison. So you might not realize it, but all the music that we listen to kind of is infused with these jazz elements. And basically it's the flatted third, I'm going to say the lowered third, because it's lowered but sort of being bent up to the real third. The lowered third, the lowered fifth, and the lowered seventh. You know, if you think of like Gershwin, Gershwin was a composer in the early 1900s that was hearing the blues scale and hearing the blues coming out of the South, and started incorporating that even into symphonic music. So as you're listening to music, kind of keep your ears perked up and listen for these lowered notes, these blue notes. And definitely as you improvise solos, start to incorporate some of those blue notes into your solos. It's definitely all over music, modern worship music, you find it there too. Definitely adds a richness and a personality to music.